Today, we're taking a look back at the life of Scott Adams, the man who gave us the iconic comic strip Dilbert and became one of the most polarizing figures in modern media. On January 13, 2026, Adams passed away at his home in California at the age of 68. He had been battling metastatic prostate cancer, a diagnosis he bravely shared with the world in May of 2025. In a final message shared by his ex-wife, he reflected, "I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had." It's a powerful statement from a man whose life was anything but simple. For over 3 decades, Scott Adams was synonymous with corporate satire. His creation, Dilbert, which first appeared in 1989, became a cultural phenomenon. Drawing from his own frustrating experiences working in the cubicles of Crocker National Bank and Pacific Bell, Adams created a world that millions of office workers instantly recognized. Dilbert, his cynical dog Dogbert, the pointy-haired boss, and the rest of the gang were more than just cartoon characters. They were symbols of the absurdities of modern corporate life. At its peak, Dilbert was a global sensation. It appeared in over 2,000 newspapers across 70 countries and was translated into dozens of languages. It spawned a mountain of merchandise, a successful animated TV series, and a series of best-selling books. In 1997, Adams received the Reuben Award, the highest honor in cartooning, solidifying his place as a master of his craft. He wasn't just a cartoonist. He was a voice for the voiceless, a champion for every employee who ever sat through a pointless meeting or dealt with an incompetent manager. His book, The Dilbert Principle, published in 1996, became a massive bestseller. It humorously argued that the most incompetent employees are systematically promoted to management to limit the damage they can do. This simple, cynical idea resonated deeply with the public and further cemented Adams' reputation as a sharp observer of human behavior and organizational dysfunction. He had an uncanny ability to take the mundane frustrations of the workplace and turn them into comedy gold. But as the media landscape shifted, so did Scott Adams. He wasn't content to just stay behind the drawing board. He embraced the digital age, launching a popular blog and later a daily podcast and YouTube livestream called Real Coffee with Scott Adams. This is where his public persona began to dramatically change. He transformed from a beloved cartoonist into a provocative commentator on politics, persuasion, and social issues. He wrote several more successful non-fiction books, including How to Fail at Almost Everything, and Still Win Big, where he shared his personal philosophy on using failure as a stepping stone to success. Another notable book was Win Bigly, where he analyzed the persuasion techniques of political figures, arguing that emotional appeals often triumph over facts. Through these works, he positioned himself as an expert on persuasion and personal development, attracting a new, and at times, more controversial following. His commentary often veered into charged territory, and he became an increasingly polarizing figure. He seemed to enjoy provoking debate and challenging conventional wisdom. While some saw him as a brilliant and fearless thinker, others viewed his statements as reckless and inflammatory. This shift set the stage for the most dramatic chapter of his career. The turning point came in February 2023. During a YouTube livestream, Adams made comments that sparked a firestorm of controversy. He referred to Black Americans as a hate group and advised white people to get the hell away from them. The backlash was swift and severe. Within days, hundreds of newspapers, including major outlets like the Washington Post and USA Today, dropped Dilbert. His syndicate, Andrews McMeel Universal, cut ties with him, effectively ending the comic strip's mainstream run after more than 30 years. The man who had once been a fixture on the comics page of nearly every newspaper in the country was, in an instant, deplatformed from the mainstream media. It was a stunning and rapid fall from grace. Adams, however, remained defiant. He defended his comments, arguing that he was being misinterpreted and that he was a victim of cancel culture. He doubled down, moving his work to alternative platforms like Rumble and Locals. He launched a new version of his comic called Dilbert Reborn, publishing it directly to his dedicated subscribers. His daily podcast continued, and he leaned even further into his role as a controversial commentator, building a community of followers who felt alienated by mainstream media. He argued that he was now freer than ever to speak his mind without the constraints of corporate gatekeepers. For his supporters, he became a martyr for free speech. For his critics, he was a cautionary tale of how a prominent creator could self-destruct. This period was a complex mix of public condemnation and defiant independence. He lost the massive platform he had spent a lifetime building, but he also found a new, more niche audience that was fiercely loyal. He continued to write and create, releasing his final book, Reframe Your Brain, in 2023, which focused on mental techniques for achieving success and happiness. Then, in May 2025, Adams shared the news of his terminal cancer diagnosis. In his characteristically direct style, he was open about his health struggles, sharing updates with his followers. He continued his podcast for as long as he could, reflecting on his life, his career, and the controversies that had defined his later years. It was a period of introspection for a man who had always been focused on the future. Looking back at Scott Adams's entire career, it's a story of incredible highs and deep lows. He was a brilliant satirist who perfectly captured the zeitgeist of the 90s corporate world. He was a savvy author and thinker who offered unique perspectives on success and persuasion. And he was a deeply controversial figure whose own words led to the dismantling of his mainstream legacy. His story raises so many questions about art, the artist, and the boundaries of speech in the digital age. Can you separate the creator from the creation? Was his downfall a necessary consequence of his actions, or an overreaction from a hypersensitive culture? There are no easy answers. What is undeniable is the impact he had. For a generation, Dilbert wasn't just a comic strip, it was a form of daily therapy. It reminded people that they weren't alone in their frustrations with the absurdities of the workplace. Scott Adams gave a voice to the cubicle dweller, and for that, he will be remembered. His final years, marked by controversy and defiance, add a complicated and, for many, a tragic layer to his story. From the pinnacle of cartooning success to a pariah of the mainstream media, his journey was a roller coaster. His final words, "I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had," feel like a fitting epitaph for a man who, for better or worse, never held back. He truly gave it his all, and the world is still debating the results. What are your thoughts on Scott Adams and the legacy of Dilbert? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this complex and influential figure. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video interesting, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into the lives that shape our culture. See you next time!